I still feel the chill of the air conditioning in that glass-walled conference room. The way my boss Rick leaned back in his leather chair, smirking as I finished my presentation. I'd spent months perfecting Novara, my AI platform that could save logistics companies millions by predicting delivery routes based on weather, traffic, and driver data. My hands trembled slightly as I clicked through my final slide. "We're not building Skynet, sweetheart," Rick said, chuckling. "Focus on the UI redesign like I asked." The room fell silent. A few men snickered. Lena, our COO, just stared at her notebook. Nobody met my eyes. I gathered my laptop, nodded professionally, and walked out with my back straight, even as my cheeks burned with humiliation. "Good try, Kate," whispered Tom, head of marketing, patting my shoulder like I was a child who'd lost a soccer game. I smiled tightly and escaped to the bathroom. Locking myself in a stall, I took 3 deep breaths. This wasn't just another rejection. This was the 3rd time in 3 years Rick had shot down Novara. 3 years of watching him praise my male colleagues for ideas half as innovative. 3 years of maybe next quarter, kiddo. But something was different today. As I splashed cold water on my face, I made a decision. Rick might control Stratosync, but he didn't control me. Not anymore. The next morning, I found my presentation slides printed and pinned to the break room bulletin board. Someone had drawn a cartoon rocket ship crashing beside it with the caption, "Idealistic Kate strikes again." I yanked it down before anyone could see me, but the damage was done. My idea wasn't just rejected, it was now the office joke. By lunchtime, pulling a Kate became shorthand for pitching something too ambitious. I heard it 3 times that day, each time followed by muffled laughter. I kept my headphones on and coded twice as hard, refusing to let them see me crack. That evening, I stayed late, waiting until the office emptied. Then I accessed my personal GitHub repository and created a private folder, Novara V1. I wouldn't use any company resources. I'd rebuild everything from scratch on my own time, with my own equipment. The code would be mine, completely mine. My phone buzzed with a text from my roommate. "Another late night?" "Last one," I replied. It wasn't exactly a lie. It would be my last late night at Stratosync. As I packed up my things, Lena appeared in my doorway, arms crossed. "Kate, a word?" Her voice was cool, calculated. She closed my office door and lowered her voice. "You don't want to be seen as difficult. Women who push too hard here disappear." I couldn't sleep that night, replaying Lena's words in my head. Was it a threat or a warning? Either way, I needed to be careful. The next morning, I arrived early and checked the company server. Sure enough, my Novara presentation had been moved to the archive folder. But something was off. The access log showed Lena had exported a copy at 11:42 p.m., long after our conversation. Why would she need that? I felt a knot tighten in my stomach. "Morning, idealistic Kate," said Jason from the dev team, not quite meeting my eyes. I forced a smile and kept walking. By noon, 3 more idealistic Kate jokes had made the rounds. I ate lunch alone at my desk, headphones on, researching watermarking techniques for code. I needed to protect myself. That afternoon, I had to attend the weekly pipeline meeting. My heart stopped when Rick stood up with a smirk and said, "I've been working on a new initiative, a dynamic route optimizer for logistics clients." He clicked through slides describing a system almost identical to Novara's core function, but stripped down, simplified, and repackaged under the name RouteMax. Not once did he mention my work. "Great idea, Rick," Lena said, nodding enthusiastically. I gripped my pen so hard it nearly snapped. After the meeting, I cornered him by the coffee machine. "That's my project," I said quietly. Rick laughed. "You really think you invented algorithms, Kate?" I spent the weekend building a fortress around my work. Every line of code I wrote got watermarked with an invisible signature. I documented everything: version histories, timestamps, the mathematical models underlying Novara's predictions. I stored multiple copies on encrypted drives kept far from Stratosync servers. Monday morning, Rick called an all-hands meeting. "Big news, team," he announced, beaming. "Our RouteMax concept has generated serious interest from Archer & Vail." Archer & Vail, our biggest client, a $2 billion shipping conglomerate that accounted for half our annual revenue. My jaw clenched as Rick outlined the innovative approach his team was taking. My approach, my innovation. During lunch, I overheard Lena telling HR Director Maya that she was concerned about Kate's emotional state lately. I froze mid-bite, listening from behind my cubicle wall. She seems fixated on ownership of ideas, Lena continued softly. Maybe stress leave would help. That evening, I found a meeting request from Rick in my inbox for the following week. Performance discussion. The subject line made my blood run cold. They were going to push me out before I could finish Novara. I needed to move faster. Opening my personal laptop, I worked through the night, streamlining Novara's algorithm. As dawn broke, I had a working prototype. Limited, but functional. It wasn't perfect, but it was mine. The Zoom call with Archer and Vale was supposed to be routine, just fixing bugs in their shipment tracking system. I sat silently at the corner of the conference table while Rick charmed the client with jokes about golf handicaps. On screen, 5 executives nodded politely, but one man stayed focused on his notes. Eli Turner, their CTO. Something about his intense focus made me sit up straighter. As the meeting wrapped up, Rick's phone rang. I need to take this, he announced, stepping out with a pointed look at Lena to handle the goodbyes. An awkward silence fell until Lena followed Rick into the hallway, whispering urgently. Suddenly, a private chat message popped up on my screen. From Eli Turner. Did you write predictive logic module on our dashboard? My heart raced. I typed back, yes, why? It's exceptional work. Very different style from the rest of your company's code. I glanced at the door, then typed, I have something better. It's called Novara. Can we speak privately? That evening, from my apartment, I joined Eli's private Zoom link. My hands shook as I screen shared my prototype. Novara's interface was simple, but the backend was revolutionary. It analyzed thousands of variables to predict optimal delivery routes with remarkable accuracy. Eli's eyes widened. If this works at scale, it could save us $300 million a year. This stays between us, Eli said, leaning into his camera. His office looked expensive, modern art on the walls, floor-to-ceiling windows showing a skyline view. Stratosync has been disappointing lately. I nodded, heart pounding. This isn't their project, it's mine. Rick rejected it 3 times. Eli's eyebrows shot up. Really? Because last week he hinted they were developing something similar. He stole the concept, I said, the words burning my throat. But he doesn't understand how it works. The version I'm showing you is built on my own time, my own equipment. Eli was silent for a moment, then nodded. I'm going to send you an NDA. After you sign it, we can discuss Archer and Vale potentially funding your development directly, not through Stratosync. I blinked, stunned. You want to fund me, personally? I want to fund the best solution, he replied calmly, which appears to be yours. That night I barely slept. By morning, the NDA was in my inbox, along with a message. We can wire 150 Kers to begin development immediately. Is 3 months enough to build a beta version? I stared at the number, more than my yearly salary. For work I'd already started. My phone buzzed with a text from Rick. Don't forget our performance meeting tomorrow. 9 a.m. sharp. I smiled at the screen. Perfect timing. Rick's face when I handed him my resignation letter was worth framing. His smug smile faltered, then collapsed into confusion. You're quitting? He asked, staring at the paper like it might bite him. Effective immediately, I replied, my voice steady. I'll clear out my desk today. He leaned back, regaining his composure. Finally burned out, huh? Tech's not for everyone, kiddo. I smiled. Something like that. Lena appeared in the doorway, arms crossed. Everything okay? Kate's leaving us, Rick said, already reaching for his phone. Mental health break, sounds like. I didn't correct him. Let them think I was broken. Let them think they'd won. As I packed my desk, coworkers stopped by with awkward goodbyes. Taking some time off? They asked. Maybe a vacation? Nobody could imagine I had other plans. That afternoon, I walked out of Stratosync's gleaming headquarters for the last time. By sunset, I'd signed a lease on a tiny office in a WeWork downtown. By midnight, I'd registered Novara Technologies, LLC. In my new space, with just a desk and my laptop, I opened Eli's email again. The contract was straightforward. Develop Novara in 3 months, license it to Archer and Vale, retain all intellectual property rights. I typed 2 words in response. I accept. 3 weeks into building Novara, my new routine felt surreal. No commute to Stratosync's flashy campus. No Rick interrupting my coding with pointless meetings. Just me, my laptop, and endless cups of coffee in my small but bright WeWork space. Eli proved to be the opposite of Rick. He gave feedback without micromanaging, respected my expertise, and never once called me kiddo or sweetheart. When we had our weekly check-ins, he asked thoughtful questions about Novara's architecture and listened to my answers. The wire transfer had cleared. $150,000 sitting in my new business account. I'd hired a lawyer who specialized in tech startups and IP protection. Everything was documented, time-stamped, and legally separate from my work at Stratosync. One night, working late, I got a text from Tasha, a junior developer I'd mentored at Stratosync. "Place is weird without you. Rick keeps asking where your project files are." I smiled at my screen. Of course he was looking. He had promised Archer and Vale a RouteMax demo, but he didn't have my code. A week later, Eli messaged me. "Rick's team just showed us their preview. It was underwhelming." "How bad?" I typed back. "Let's just say we're extremely glad we found you," he replied. That night, I celebrated by splurging on takeout for my favorite sushi place. For the first time since leaving Stratosync, I felt absolutely certain I'd made the right choice. The beta version of Novara came together faster than I expected. Freed from Stratosync's bureaucracy and endless meetings, I coded for 12 hours straight some days, stopping only when my vision blurred. By the 6-week mark, I had a working system ready for testing. Eli arranged for Archer and Vale to integrate Novara into a single port route, their Seattle to Anchorage shipping lane. We'd measure fuel savings, delivery times, and driver satisfaction. The day we launched the test, I hardly slept. I kept checking my phone for disaster alerts, for emails about crashes or bugs. Nothing came. Instead, after 2 weeks of testing, Eli called with news. 18% efficiency increase across the board. Fuel costs down 22%. Our CFO nearly fell out of his chair when he saw the numbers. I sank onto my couch, relief washing over me. "It works," I whispered. "Better than we expected," Eli confirmed. And Kate, another logistics company, reached out to me. Apparently, word's getting around. They want to talk to you. That night, I received a message from Delta Freight, Archer and Vale's biggest competitor. "We hear you have something revolutionary. Let's talk." I forwarded it to my lawyer with a simple question. "Can I take this meeting?" Her response was immediate. "Absolutely. Your IP, your company. Stratosync has no claims." For the first time, I allowed myself to imagine Novara becoming something bigger than I'd dreamed. 3 months after leaving Stratosync, my days became a blur of demos, meetings, and coding sessions. Delta Freight signed on as Novara's second client. Then came Horizon Rail, looking to optimize their freight train scheduling. Then Polar Air, needing better tracking for their cargo flights. I hired 2 developers to help scale Novara's infrastructure. My WeWork office expanded to include 3 desks and a small meeting room. My lawyer negotiated contracts that protected my IP while maximizing revenue. Then one morning, I woke to a flurry of texts. A tech blog called Startup Scoop had published an article, "Ex-Stratosync engineer behind silent logistics revolution?" The piece was light on details, but mentioned that a former senior developer at Stratosync had created a potential game-changer for logistics AI. That was attracting attention from major players. My phone rang. "Eli? Have you seen it?" he asked without preamble. "Just now," I replied, scanning the article again. "They don't mention me by name." "Not yet," he said grimly, "but Rick will know it's you." He was right. By afternoon, my lawyer forwarded me an email from Stratosync's legal team. A cease and desist letter claiming I had used company resources to develop Novara and demanding I transfer all rights to Stratosync immediately. I called my lawyer in a panic. She laughed. "They've got nothing, Kate. Your documentation is pristine. This is just intimidation." That night, another tech blog picked up the story. This time, they used my name. Stratosync's legal threats escalated quickly. After the cease and desist came accusations of theft of trade secrets, breach of contract, and violation of non-compete agreements. My lawyer remained calm, systematically dismantling each claim with my meticulous documentation. "They're desperate," she explained during our strategy session. "This Rick person realized too late what he let walk out the door." She prepared a response that included timestamps, proof that Novara was built entirely on my personal equipment, and most damaging, screenshots of Rick's internal Slack messages mocking my idealistic ideas. "Where did you get these?" she asked, eyes widening at Rick's dismissive comments. "Tasha," I admitted. My former mentee, she still works there and, well, she saw how they treated me. The lawyer grinned. This is gold, Kate. Pure gold. That evening, I received an unexpected text from a number I didn't recognize. We should talk. Coffee tomorrow? Lena. My stomach nodded. Lena, Stratosync's COO, Rick's right hand. The same woman who'd warned HR I was emotionally unstable. I showed the message to my lawyer. Meet her in public, she advised. Record everything. Say nothing about our legal strategy. I texted back, 3 p.m., Bluestone Cafe on 4th. Then I Googled Lena's name out of curiosity and froze. A business registry filing from 6 weeks ago showed she'd formed a new corporation, Resignation Systems, LLC. Why did that name sound so familiar? The cafe buzzed with afternoon customers as I claimed a corner table with a clear view of the entrance. I'd arrived early, ordered a latte, and positioned my phone to record our conversation. Lena walked in at exactly 3 p.m., wearing a sleek black suit that probably cost more than my monthly rent. She spotted me and smiled, the same calculated smile she used in board meetings right before dismantling someone's proposal. Kate, she said, sliding into the seat across from me. You look well. Entrepreneurship suits you. What do you want, Lena? I kept my voice neutral, my hands steady. She stirred her coffee slowly. I've been watching Novara's progress. Very impressive. Is that why Stratosync is threatening to sue me? She waved her hand dismissively. Rick panicked. He's all ego, no strategy. She leaned forward. I'm not here for Rick. I'm here for myself. Meaning? I want to invest in Novara. Early stage pre-valuation. I know talent when I see it, Kate. I always did. I nearly choked on my coffee. You told HR I was emotionally unstable. Office politics, she said smoothly. Nothing personal. Now we can be allies. Something felt wrong. That night, I ran a deep search on Resignation Systems. Nothing came up except the business filing. Then I tried a different angle, searching for patent applications. There it was. Resignation had filed a provisional patent for dynamic logistics route optimization using predictive algorithms. The description was eerily familiar. Too familiar. Lena wasn't offering an investment. She was fishing for information while developing a competing product. The next morning, I received an email from a venture capital firm interested in Novara. Then another, and another. The Startup Scoop article had caught the attention of investors. By week's end, I was fielding serious funding inquiries. My lawyer connected me with a trusted VC who offered $2.5 million for 15% equity, valuing Novara at nearly $17 million. The term sheet arrived on a Tuesday. I signed it on Wednesday. The money hit my account on Friday. Suddenly, Novara Technologies was real, not just a rogue project run from a WeWork, but a funded startup with legitimacy and runway. I moved the company into proper offices, complete with a sign on the door. I hired a small team, including Tasha, who quit Stratosync the moment I called. You have no idea how bad it got after you left, she told me her first day. Rick's been raging. The RouteMax project is a disaster. And Lena? I asked casually. Tasha frowned. Barely around anymore. Everyone says she's working on some secret project. I nodded, having confirmed my suspicions. That afternoon, a logistics consultant I'd hired called with news. There's a new platform being demoed to smaller shipping companies, called Resignation. Sounds similar to Novara. Too similar. I requested a demo through a shell company, and what I saw made my blood boil. The interface was different, but the underlying functionality, the way it processed data, prioritized routes, even some of the error messages, mirrored early versions of Novara. Lena hadn't just formed a competing company. She'd stolen my code. Ravinex's software wasn't just similar to Novara. In some sections, it was identical. The login screen had different colors, but the dashboard layout, notification system, and back-end architecture were unmistakably based on my work. But how? I'd never shared my code with Lena. The only people with access were me, my small team, and our clients. I called Eli immediately. Did anyone at Archer and Vale share Novara's code outside the approved testing group? His pause told me everything. There was an incident, he admitted, an unauthorized access to our development server last month. We thought it was just general corporate espionage. It was, I said grimly, very specific espionage. I assembled my team and our lawyer. We spent the weekend reverse engineering Resignation, documenting every similarity. By Monday morning, we had proof. Nearly 40% of their code was directly copied from Novara's early builds. The most damning evidence came from my watermarks, invisible tags I'd embedded that appeared only under specific testing conditions. They were still there in Revonex's system, silently testifying to the theft. My lawyer didn't mince words. We file for immediate patent protection, then sue Ravonex for IP theft. That evening, our paperwork went to the patent office. The same night, an anonymous package arrived at my apartment. A USB drive containing internal Stratosync emails between Rick and Lena discussing leveraging Kate's prototype shortly after I'd left. The note attached simply read, "Not everyone at Stratosync supports theft. Good luck." While my lawyer prepared the lawsuit against Ravonex, I received another unexpected gift. A whistleblower from Stratosync's finance team contacted me with evidence that Rick had been manipulating quarterly reports to hide declining performance. "He's been cooking the books since before you left," the anonymous email explained, inflating client numbers, hiding the fact that 3 major accounts are considering jumping ship. I forwarded everything to my lawyer, who added a careful note. "This isn't directly related to our IP case, but it could be valuable leverage." She was right. Within days, we had compiled a devastating legal package: proof of code theft by Lena, evidence of Stratosync's financial misrepresentations, and documentation of Rick's attempts to claim my work as his own. Rather than filing quietly, my lawyer suggested a nuclear option. Let's file the patent infringement case and simultaneously send the financial evidence to Stratosync's board and the SEC. Create a perfect storm. The timing couldn't have been better. Ravonex was scheduled to launch publicly the following week. Stratosync had an earnings call 3 days later, and Lena was speaking at a Women in Tech panel that Friday. "Do it," I said, surprising myself with my steadiness. The next morning, 3 different bombs dropped simultaneously. Our patent application went public, detailing Novara's innovations. The SEC received an anonymous tip about Stratosync's financial reporting, and Ravonex was served with a cease and desist order. My phone buzzed repeatedly with notifications. The tech world had noticed. The Women in Tech panel was being live-streamed, and despite everything happening, I couldn't resist watching. Lena sat center stage in a power suit, speaking confidently about innovation and disruption, while 4 other female executives nodded along. "As women," Lena was saying, "we need to support each other's ideas and—" She stopped mid-sentence as a man in a suit approached the stage, handed her an envelope, then walked away. The camera zoomed in as her face paled. She'd been served with our lawsuit, publicly, on camera, in the middle of talking about supporting other women. Twitter exploded. Chash, Ravonex, and code theft started trending. Someone created a side-by-side comparison of Novara and Ravonex interfaces and posted it with the caption, "Spot the innovation." By evening, tech blogs were running the story. Stratosync COO accused of stealing former employees' code. The next morning, Stratosync stock dropped 8% in pre-market trading. By closing bell, it was down 15%. Investors were spooked by both the lawsuit and the whispers of financial misreporting. 2 board members called for an emergency meeting. My lawyer texted me updates throughout the day. Ravonex investors pulling out. Then, SEC officially investigating Stratosync. And finally, Rick trying desperately to reach you. Don't engage without me. That night, I sat alone in my apartment, watching the chaos I'd unleashed. Part of me felt horrible for the innocent Stratosync employees caught in the crossfire. But another part, the part that remembered every dismissive kiddo and mocking idealistic Kate, felt a grim satisfaction. Rick's meltdown came faster than I expected. 3 days after Lena was served, he published a rambling post on Medium titled, "What I Learned About Leadership and Toxic Workplaces." It was half self-pitying memoir, half veiled attack on me, describing an unnamed, disgruntled former employee who had weaponized intellectual property disputes. Tech Twitter tore it apart within hours. Rick's attempts to paint himself as the victim backfired spectacularly, especially when someone leaked screenshots of his Slack messages mocking my ideas. In a brilliant move, I wish I'd thought of myself, someone bought the domain rickhalpernapology.com and redirected it to Novara's homepage. Meanwhile, the lawsuit against Ravonex progressed rapidly. Without proper investor backing, Lena couldn't afford a prolonged legal battle. Her lawyer reached out to discuss settlement terms, essentially shutting down Ravonex completely and a public admission that the technology belonged to me. On the Stratosync front, Rick's position grew more precarious by the day. The board's investigation into financial misreporting uncovered even more problems than the whistleblower had revealed. 3 advisory boards asked him to step down. Clients began demanding meetings to discuss their contracts. Then came the email I'd been waiting for, from Rick himself. "We need to talk." It read simply, "Please, before this destroys everything." My lawyer advised caution. "He's desperate. That makes him both dangerous and potentially generous. Let's hear what he has to offer, but on our terms, not his." I replied with 3 words, "My office, tomorrow." I arrived at Novara's headquarters early, wanting to center myself before Rick showed up. Our office wasn't fancy, nothing like Stratosync's gleaming campus, but it was ours. Honest work, real innovation, no office politics. Tasha brought me coffee. "Are you sure you want to do this alone?" "My lawyer will be on standby," I assured her. "And honestly, I need to face him myself." Rick arrived exactly at 10 a.m., looking like he'd aged years since I'd left Stratosync. His usually perfect suit was slightly rumpled, his confident swagger replaced by tense, jerky movements. "Kate," he said, extending his hand. I didn't take it. "Have a seat, Rick." He sat, glancing around our office with poorly disguised disdain. "Cozy place." "It's profitable," I replied, "unlike Stratosync these days." His jaw tightened. "That's what I want to discuss. This war between us, it's hurting both companies." "There is no war, Rick. There's just you facing consequences." "Look," he leaned forward, "what if we work together? A strategic partnership. Stratosync has the client base, the infrastructure. Novara has your innovation. Together, we'd be unstoppable." I almost laughed. After years of dismissing me, now he wanted my help. "A partnership," I repeated flatly. "With you in charge, I assume?" "Co-leadership," he offered, trying to sound generous. "Equal billing." I stood up. "I have a counteroffer." Rick's face fell as I slid a folder across the table. "What's this?" "Terms for Novara's acquisition of Stratosync's logistics division," I said calmly. The document outlined a hostile buyout, pennies on the dollar, given Stratosync's plummeting value. "This is insane," he sputtered, flipping through the pages. "You want to buy us? With what money?" "We're closing our Series A next week, $28 million. More than enough." His face reddened. "The board would never accept this." "They already have." I pulled out a second folder, emails from 3 board members tentatively supporting the deal, desperate to stop the bleeding before shareholders revolted. "You went behind my back?" His voice rose dangerously. "I learned from the best," I replied coolly. Rick stood abruptly, knocking his chair backward. "You think I'd ever work for you, after this stunt?" I smiled, feeling a strange calm. "You called me sweetheart in that boardroom. Remember that? When you dismissed the idea that's now saving companies millions?" He had no answer. "You're right," I continued. "You won't work for me. The terms specify your immediate removal as CEO. Your golden parachute is generous, if you sign today." As he stormed out, I called after him. "The offer expires tomorrow, Rick. Ask the board what happens if you refuse." I didn't expect Rick to fold so quickly, but by 9 a.m. the next day, my lawyer called with news. He signed. The board forced his hand when 2 more major investors threatened to pull out. Everything moved in fast forward after that. Due diligence teams swarmed Stratosync. Press releases were drafted. My small company was suddenly acquiring a division of a publicly traded corporation. It felt surreal walking into Stratosync's headquarters 3 weeks later, not as idealistic Kate, but as the new CEO of their logistics division, now rebranded under Novara. The same security guard who had taken my badge when I resigned now held the door open with a nervous smile. Employees gathered in the main atrium, faces anxious. Many knew me, but none had expected this reversal of fortune. "I know this transition feels sudden," I began, looking out at the sea of concerned faces. "But I promise you, good ideas will be heard here now. Talent will be respected, regardless of gender or background." I spotted familiar faces. Developers who had watched my humiliation in silence, managers who had laughed at idealistic Kate jokes. Some looked away, ashamed. Others seemed cautiously hopeful. "The code that powers Novara began in this building," I continued, "but it couldn't grow here, not then. Now, we're creating a place where innovation thrives." Later, in what had been Rick's corner office, I found a sticky note on the desk. "The Queen is dead. Long live the Queen." No signature, but I recognized Tasha's handwriting. I smiled, opened my laptop, and got to work. We announced the acquisition with a simple tweet from Novara's account. Sometimes the future acquires the past. Excited to welcome Stratosync's logistics division to the Novara family. The tech press went wild. Rejected developer returns as conquering CEO, read one headline. Another simply stated, idealistic Kate gets last laugh. My inbox flooded with congratulatory messages, interview requests, and, most valuably, resumes from top engineers eager to join us. Overnight, Novara went from promising startup to legitimate industry player. I appointed Tasha as CTO of the combined division, promoting her over several more senior engineers. Some grumbled, but they quieted when they saw her code. The weeks that followed were grueling but exhilarating. We integrated teams, streamlined processes, and accelerated Novara's development to serve our expanded client base. I worked 16-hour days, fueled by a strange mix of determination and disbelief. 1 month after the acquisition, while walking through what had been Stratosync's developer floor, I overheard 2 engineers talking. She actually listens in meetings and implements good ideas. Unlike Rick, the other replied. Remember how he shot down Kate's original pitch? Now we're all working on it. I smiled to myself and kept walking. The validation felt sweet, but it wasn't why I'd done this. I'd built Novara because I believed in it, not to prove anything to Rick or anyone else. Still, as I passed the conference room where he dismissed me so casually, I couldn't help but feel a small, private thrill. Lena disappeared after Ravenex collapsed. Her social media went dark. Her speaker appearances were canceled. Even her LinkedIn profile seemed frozen in time. Then, 3 months after the acquisition, I received a plain white envelope at Novara's offices. No return address, just my name typed on the front. Inside was a handwritten note. You won. Fair and square. I didn't expect that. L. I considered throwing it away. Instead, I locked it in my desk drawer and tried to forget about it. That night, an anonymous email arrived in my personal account. The subject line read simply, "The truth. I knew your idea would destroy Rick." The message began. I just wasn't ready to let him go. I buried you to buy time, hoping to position myself as the innovation leader once you were gone. I didn't expect you to build Novara on your own. I underestimated you. We all did. I read it 3 times, trying to process Lena's confession. Part of me wanted to respond with anger, to demand more explanation for the sabotage and theft. But another part recognized something familiar in her words. The desperate calculations of a woman trying to succeed in a system designed against her. I closed the email without responding and shut my laptop. Some chapters needed to stay closed. The next day, I announced a new initiative at Novara, a mentorship program specifically designed to support women and minorities in tech. We'd pair junior developers with experienced mentors, provide resources for growth, and create pathways to leadership. If Lena was still watching from the shadows, I wanted her to see that there was another way to climb besides pushing others down. 6 months after acquiring Stratosync, Novara had grown to 120 employees. Top logistics companies filled our client list. Then came an invitation to give a TED Talk about my journey. Preparing it, I realized this story wasn't about revenge, but resilience. On stage in a simple cream suit, I began, "They weren't underestimating you. They were just terrified." I explained how innovation threatens the status quo and how women in tech face dismissal, regardless of their idea's quality. Revenge doesn't require rage, I concluded. Just receipts. Document everything. Believe in your vision. The standing ovation lasted nearly a minute. My phone buzzed. The talk was already trending. The TED Talk hit 1 million views within days. Women in tech shared similar stories. My boss called my idea cute. 6 months later, he presented it as his own. Venture capitalists who'd ignored me now wanted meetings. Companies offered partnerships. Universities requested speaking engagements. Most surprising was an email from Stratosync's founder, retired before Rick's time. "Watching you reclaim this mission makes me prouder than I can say." Over lunch at her Bayview home, she shared stories of Stratosync's scrappy startup days. She gifted me a vintage company pin. "For remembering roots," the note read, a reminder, every company starts with one believed-in idea. 1 year after my TED Talk, I stood outside Novara's headquarters, once Stratosync's building but now adorned with our blue logo. Inside, 300 employees worked on code that optimized shipping routes globally, exactly what I'd pitched in that conference room years ago. In the lobby, a young developer nearly collided with me, her eyes widening with recognition. "I have this idea," she confessed nervously, "but my team lead said it's too ambitious." "Tell me everything," I said, leading her to my office, remembering how it felt when no one would listen. Perfect full circle.